If I'm supposed to treat my marriage as a company and I was the CEO, I'd have fired her by now. Welcome, Midswatch Ryan. Interesting one. This is a long one, so if my voice gets thin at the end of it, bear with. But this is about the dynamic of actually having some like dead weight of a wife. So it started from, and this one isn't actually from like a specific guy asking for anything. This is like 7 years ago now, but at the time of doing this, which was 2023. But it was from the Own Your Shit threads, which every week we'd have a thread where instead of everybody posting their sob story individually, you kind of put them all in one place so everybody could kind of just go through and swap notes together. And this is one of those ones. Now, I'm not going to bore you with the guy's story. It's pretty plain Jane. It was really the response to it from Jack Ten of Hearts, who I've mentioned often, the guy who's tried to add a very good marketing angle, luxury branding to the red pill, which is absolutely good work. And then a couple of my thoughts at the end. So the stories are identical. So we're just going to start at it. Like, look, man, Jack's talking to the guy and he's like, I don't know if it's worth anything, but I had a friend who was struggling with his former CEO, now stay-at-home wife, and I'm pretty much just going to tell you exactly what I told him a couple months ago. He had a similar incident about a month later. His wife came home from some recreational trip, immediately started bitching at him for the state of the household despite his super dad efforts. So to me, this is like, dude, you told me to act like the CEO. Well, if I was CEO, I'd have fired her fucking ass. So should I just get a divorce? And then he also says, look, man, I tried to keep my cool. I told her I was going to take a walk, and then it's like, bzz, wrong answer. Imagine a CEO and a vice president storms in the boardroom and starts yelling about incompetent management. Does he leave his own meeting? No. He'd have sighed, had an expression somewhere in between a chargon and a smirk, and asked everybody else to leave the room. Sorry guys, looks like the VP and I have to hash something out. Let's do this again another time. The other VPs would have left out of the room, probably reminding the CEO that he's not Australian, so he shouldn't say mate in a professional setting. Also, they're managing directors, not VPs, which is actually a middle management position in the UK, but they would have filed out. So, Anglo jokes aside, I tell my friend, look, first, you tell your kids to leave the area. You don't leave, you're the authority. I know, it's tough. Your wife just went on a recreational trip, and instead of being pleasant and relaxed, she's a raging cunt. And then, you're gonna hit the save now, finish this on your laptop, because I have another 2,000 word response coming on. So Jack pours himself a drink. Geez, he's getting really theatrical on this one. But by the way, you're not an alcoholic. You just have an alcohol abuse problem when you feel anxious and or depressed. That turns out during these fights, the guy always had to have a drink to calm down. So that was the thing. And he was worried about having an alcohol problem. So he's like, find a different coping mechanism when you feel anxious, depressed, and you won't need a 12-step program. If it's midnight and your wife just went to bed without fucking you and you're still pissed, go for a jog in your neighborhood to let off some steam. And if you get back and still feel compelled to open up a Guinness, then maybe you need to think about and a couple of drinks numb the pain, and you might pass out and actually get 6 hours of sleep that night instead of tossing and turning like an ass for 4 hours. As I was saying, my friend, with his former CEO, now stay-at-home mom / wife, storms into the backyard after her own girls' trips to Napa Valley, and the friend says she's gonna go for a walk, and he tells me, so I thought I'd let off some steam, but I just kept thinking about how fucked up this is. She takes a trip, literally with my money, and okay, yeah, maybe I could have tidied up the house or whatever, but this is the first thing she says. What the fuck? I'm like, look, man, that's just how this works. The CEO doesn't leave his own boardroom, and he definitely does not say, oh, you have a problem? Well, let me itemize my list of grievances, right? He doesn't do that. He probably sends the other guys out of the room and then may sort of pause, massage his temples, maybe even wince a bit, take a deep breath and say, so, I take it you have some sort of problem with this. He's like, fucking hell. I get it. She has a problem. So I need to listen to her whine about her long flight back and the shitty cab ride and how my super dad efforts are just a day in the life of the aggrieved stay-at-home mom. And he's like, he grabs his friend. Jack's like, dude, I wish you were British so I'd have a more clever word to use than dude. But at this point, I need you to pay attention because it's going to give you an epiphany. Jesus Christ. You know why she was pissed. It had zero validity, but in her mind it did. And you reacted like a woman. Your thinking was, quite simply, I am really not really pissed at your criticism, but the fact that it represents the fact that it only has the most tenuous relation to logic right now, and the fact that I'm married to somebody who thinks comprehending this line of thinking has any validity right now. You know, the friend pauses. He's like, I know I'm right. Since I'm always right about this shit, I ask him, so, do you think that being Mr. Cool, I'm gonna leave the house and not erupt, that did anything but marinate your thoughts on how fucked up it is that your non-fucker of a wife had the audacity to say this? All right, I'm gonna skip a lot of his British stuff here. He's like, yeah, fuck, that happened. So what am I supposed to do? Just calmly deal with their shit? And he's like, no. Jack's like, look, and he breaks the rule here where he's like, yeah, I have this thing called Reddit and a thing called the Red Pill, and there's this subsection for married guys, and I realize this is all pointless because this guy has bigger problems than just like getting a blowjob. And it's a reference to the guy admitting that he has no frame in these situations and he always buckles. It's like, look, your wife is out of line and pisses you off. Just own it. Cut right to the core. The CEO would do this. The VP storms in, clears the room, then he'd sigh, massage his temples. It's like, I'm just disappointed you felt that this is the first thing you had to contribute to the meeting. Oh man, the guy's, you know, my wife would have just lost her shit right then, just gone on about how fucked up all these things are in her absence. He goes, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because fundamentally what she did was fucked up. Look, you already know what happened. She went on a trip. She enjoyed herself. She came back. She probably had a shitty flight since all flights are shitty. There's baggage claim, the taxi stand, yelling at the driver, yelling at the cabbie about Donald Trump or something or other, hamstering about the disorder, all this stuff. Now, since there is no ultimate good to defer to, you have to know what you want so that you can ask yourself the right questions. She walks in, sees 2 dirty dishes and you playing with the soccer ball. The guy's like, I wasn't playing with the soccer ball. I'm throwing a goddamn American S pie apple skin, blah, blah, blah. He's like, yeah. She wasn't mad about that. She's mad because she's an anxious type A woman who calls herself a planner. And you know this. Just like you know that she flipped her shit because she saw some dirty dishes and thought the whole house is in disorder, and everything else you did that weekend is irrelevant because she does 10 times that much every day of the week. Well, no shit. And she didn't hesitate to remind you every 30 seconds in that inevitable fight you had either, did you? Then the guy's like, yeah, I didn't even tell you about all the shit she said. Are you saying that all of that has any validity? Did I actually fuck up here? He's like, no, you didn't. Oh, for fuck's sakes. Got so much extra stuff here. Oh, all right, skipping all that. Anyways, there was like a whole big side plot. And he's like, Jack's like, look, man, I think we lost the plot here. It's like, yeah, well, you were giving some good advice. Then I thought you were some English dude. All right, skipping all this too. What in the fuck is he talking about? Oh, here we go. Yeah. So look, your mistake, and this is the key part of all of this rambling nonsense. The key mistake is that you see both sides of your grievances and you try to find some higher ground where only you have the grievance, which is why all your arguments become a shootout where you both itemize the sacrifices you've made for each other in the family, and you always lose. Because it always comes down to you saying, you don't fuck me as often as I'd like. And she says, sorry, I don't fuck you because I actually spend time with our kids. And you say, well, maybe I'd spend more time with our kids more if I wasn't solely responsible for all of our income. And then she says, well, I had my own career until we both decided it'd be better to stay at home with the kids. And I say, well, maybe that was a mistake because I didn't realize you'd care more about the PTA than fucking your husband. And that's probably when she says some shit like, well, maybe I'd care more about fucking my husband if we were legally married, and then burst into tears and your kids burst into tears because they're watching your parents fight. So yeah, and that's the problem is when you label these up like this. Anyways, more blah, blah, blah. Jesus, Jack felt like writing a goddamn book. All right, so here we go. So what do you do then if the wife comes in and starts bitching about the dishes the instant she walks through the door? It's like you probably just sigh and say, oh, glad you're back home too. You send the kids to bed, you clean up dinner, call a friend on your cell phone and ask him if he's free to hang out. He goes, you mean while my wife is bitching at me? He's like, yeah. Because the dinner table needs to get clean, right? So that's your message. It's the VP storming into the bedroom, complaining about it, or the boardroom, complaining about eating underappreciated. The CEO says, fine, you can have a 1.5% raise. Can we start our meeting? And the VP is like, no, it's not about the salary. It's not about the nail. This is really a convoluted story. Let's skip way to the end here. There we go. Wait until the end here. There we go. God damn it. I'm going to spell this shit out for you. This has got to be the worst episode ever. I didn't realize this was this much of a rambly mess that was off point. So you're pissed at your wife for not fucking you. Your wife is pissed that you never commit to her. You both have spent your entire fake marriage pretending this is okay. And at some point you have to say, look, you know what I want in a first officer and this isn't it. And she says, well, you made it very clear there's no spot for a first officer in your marriage. So fuck you and all of your, like, you know, fake praise. So you clean the dinner table, you leave the house. Your wife gets hysterical enough to admit that under her hard-ass ball-busting exterior is just an insecure woman who's scared that she's just a baby mama. And yeah, because she storms into the backyard and bitches you out, it's either because she's a bitch and she can fuck off, or because she acts like a bitch and some deep-seated insecurity about commitment you never addressed. So fuck you. You clean the kitchen, you keep her cool, but if she asks what your problem is, you tell her. You own it. You don't like her very much right now because of this behavior. Coming back from a vacation and immediately bitching about the kitchen. And she will be defensive at first, and she will try to misdirect you. And you'll repeat, look, I told you I don't like you very much right now, so if you care about that, you're not really helping your case. And she'll eventually start a sentence with, look, I just lashed out because, because I said, fuck you or fuck me. She'll start that by saying she had a stressful fight back, and eventually get back to the root cause because you guys both carry a huge pool of resentment for each other because of this lack of yes, no, sex and formal marriage thing, and your marriage probably doesn't get materially better until you deal with that. She doesn't add value to your life as much as you'd like, and if she does, you consider adding value to hers more than you currently do. So either you both come to some sort of understanding on that, or you get divorced. It's that simple. So is this red pill or blue pill? I don't even know. Jack here has been saying blue pill stuff that sounds red and red pill stuff that sounds blue for literally his entire time on here. So eventually the moronic social justice warriors and misogynistic shitlords from the red pill on Reddit will realize it's just the same stuff. They will also both realize their advice is not broadly applicable as they assume, probably around the same time that they're old hassles in their 40s, and realize extrapolating principles across every gender and relationship is fucking stupid. All right, I'm going to pause here. I think I actually am going to go in. So this guy is Casual Shanter. It's been some months since he found the sub. He did Married Man's Sex Life Primer, fired off a load of beginning questions. And then he realized his issues. He's got 4 big issues. He doesn't sleep, alcohol, he opens his mouth, and he has no hobbies outside of the gym. He spent the last weekend looking after the kids while the wife was headed to Paris with some girlfriends on a girls' night out. During this time, kids had a good time. Son went to football, daughter went to the park. The kids went out for food, did homework, bought a Christmas tree, went to school Christmas fairs, cooked them both healthy food, did the homework, all that stuff. Wife gets home, finds him in a garden playing football with his kid while the daughter's reading a book on the sofa. We just finished dinner, hadn't cleaned up yet. So rather than express thanks for 2 days away drinking wine in Paris or all the good shit he did with the kids, the wife looks at the kitchen and goes ballistic. At this point, he was tired, hadn't been to the gym for a couple days, so we figured I'm not going to keep my cool, so I put on my coat and told her I wasn't going to have that talk with her while she's like this, and he booked. Didn't go far. He drove up the road, sat and listened to music. The wife rings him up, begging to come around and come home. And when he gets back, he's calm but distant, and she doesn't like that, so she goes into it, rips into him, and he loses his fucking mind. He shouts at her and yells at her in front of the kids, calls her an ungrateful bitch, said we had a great time without her, but he's screaming. She cries, the kids cry. He's like, this is a fuck up. Son of a bitch. So why did he explode? Well, he's not getting enough sleep. Between sleep, work, and the kids, he knows it's not enough. And when he goes to bed, he fucks about on his phone or listens to music. And on top of that, he has an unhealthy relationship with booze. So after the wife went to bed, she's crying. He drank a bottle of wine in about an hour and then drunkenly decided to screw around on YouTube, didn't get enough sleep, woke up next day even more tired. This is something he's doing again and again and again. Often at weekends, when the kids were finally in bed and the missus went to bed early, he fills the void with booze, and it's doing nothing good to him at all. And then finally, when he's tired and drunk, he opens his mouth and says honest things that he probably shouldn't. Yells at the family, scared the kids, told my wife I wanted a woman who wanted me and wasn't just putting out in order to keep a life funded by me. Yeah, idiot, negotiating desire. I know better. Anyway, so he makes a bunch of things saying he needs to stop drinking in the house, needs to stop doing this. So you're watching this stuff out of order now. But so you've heard from his story, and you've heard Jack's rambling mess of a story. I'm going to add my thoughts onto this one and hopefully bring this all together. So the guy's obviously common law married. He's not married. The girl's insecure about that and worries about the commitment side of things. And for some reason, one of the ways that she tries to express this is by, killing the bedroom. At the same time, she's very neurotic. She's very insecure. And it comes out with a thin veneer of narcissism. It turns out a lot of women, when they are insecure, their way of coping with that and their way of soothing that is to act like a raging narcissist, hence nagging cunt stuff. So the way to deal with this stuff is you have to get to the core of it. I hate to say it, but if you really do want to, you don't have to, but you're in the relationship, you might as well make an effort, especially if you got kids together, is you have to be a therapist here. So in this case, she's freaking out about this stuff. Keep your shit about you because you realize, okay, is she really mad because everything is perfect except for 2 dishes in the sink? No, it's not. It's completely unrealistic. And so once you realize it's not about you, you can distance your emotions from it. You don't need to freak out. Guys freak out because they have expectations. I did everything, and you need to appreciate that. Well, she's a woman, and she didn't. And she's probably hungover from wine. So yeah, she's not going to. So now you realize, well, then why doesn't she? That's so rude and evil. It's well, let me ask you this. Why do you need your wife or girlfriend or baby mama or whatever to validate you running the house to your standard? You don't. And then once you realize that, you're like, all right. It's the same way as you treat a kid crying for no reason. You put them to bed, give them a thing, let them talk, and eventually they'll let out some giant insecurity, and that's the actual thing to deal with. And this is actually like a very shitty version of a comfort test, if you boil it down. And this is why when a lot of guys say, I said things calmly and rationally and blah, 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 and then she's still freaking out, you can tell they're not calm and they're not rational, but they kind of understand they need to be. And the reason they can't be is because they have a covert contract. I did everything. She needs to be respectful of that. And it's no, she doesn't. So once you have to internalize the idea that she's just like a kid. She'll emote and she has no control over it, and it has nothing to do with you. It's about some other insecurity. And as long as you can accept that, then you just realize it's like a 4-year-old calling you a poopy head. And if you got a 4-year-old calling you a poopy head, what do? Do you drop kick her through the drywall? It's no. You laugh, you give her a noogie, and you move on with your day. It's that kind of thing here. So ultimately, it's boiling down to a situation where he's tired of a sexless marriage and she's tired of a non-marriage marriage. Now, one of these two are going to have to buckle. It's for one social strategy or for one sexual strategy to succeed, the other one has to fail. And until this battle over, who gets to wear the pants in a relationship is over, it's going to constantly be at this level here. And a lot of them, they tend not to want to play chicken like this because there's kids involved and they're trying to be nice about it. Now, what's the solution? Well, that's not up for me. That's up for you. I'm common law married with mine, so I'm not going to get married or have the ring. And she's fine with that. So that's the way it went for me. There's other guys like traditional, conservative, you must get married. And again, that's another option. And there's a whole bunch of trade-offs that happen with either decision. But you, generally speaking, have to make one like this. And it's either she wins, you win, or you both part. And that's generally how these interactions go. The part that goes wrong is when you start emotionally investing in all the little details, because this is what he literally describes it before. You have all these grievances and you start listing them off. Well, I did this. Well, I did this. And you guys are playing who's the more downtrodden victim here. And it really doesn't matter. There's 2 dishes in the sink. We'll get them later. Sit the fuck down. If you're going to yell in front of the kids about this shit, go to your room, have a nap. If she doesn't do that, then yeah, I agree. It's your house. You don't leave the house. But sometimes you do. Sometimes it's just, all right, kids, mom needs a minute. You take the kids, you go get some ice cream, you F off, and she can sit there alone with her thoughts. Don't answer the phone. If it's important, it's face-to-face important. And just having her continue the argument by phone or by text message. Don't answer text, don't listen to phone calls. Eventually she realizes, and this is one of those things where you have to train your girl how to address you. You know, you will respect me. Well, you got to incentivize it. You got to show her how it happens. In this case, when she starts emoting like this, you're non-responsive. She can't get what she wants. When she's emoting to you, it's because she wants those emotions reflected back. If she's angry at you, she wants you to be angry back. It's a validation thing. So when she realizes all this shitty behavior does not get any response, doesn't get anything, it starves that fire. And then eventually, you know, out of pure exasperation, you just get a normal conversation. And you can even say as much. It's like, look, when you can talk to me like an adult, we'll have an adult conversation. That's it. So, again, this one's like a really difficult one to break down. It does ultimately boil down to one of them is going to win and one of them is going to lose, and they're too proud to say it. It's not your problem, though. It's not. I don't have an ending for this one, so I'm just going to end it.